Hey guys, Dre here, back at it once again with a brand new video for you, and welcome to another back-to-back in part 2 of a triple header of Dre TV episodes this week. That may or may not be a spoiler for what's coming tomorrow. But welcome to episode 12 of season 3 of Dre TV, and in this episode we're talking about MotoGP in Argentina this past Sunday, in what was one of the most loaded days of motorsport I think I've ever seen. My god, there was too much motorsport on Sunday. I could barely keep up with it all. But MotoGP was a friggin' classic, again, and MotoGP just keeps killing it at the moment for entertaining races, and this one was yet another magnificent race. With all sorts of drama at the top, and even the lower classes had its own intriguing storylines as well that was going on, but an incredible race, and one that was decided almost before it even gotten started, because this is one of the very rare times in MotoGP where there was a race where there were two feasible compounds that you could use going into the race for the rear tyre, and that was the running narrative of the weekend. What tyre would the guys use? You had a hard compound tyre, the softer of the two options for the factory runners. And the thing with that was that it was the softer of the two compounds, and it was the faster tyre, blatantly the faster tyre, maybe by about 0.3 or 0.4 a lap, but there was question marks as to whether it could last the entire race. On the other side, you had the extra hard compound tyre, and this is the first time that Bridgestone have brought these to a race weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And these extra hard yellow rim tyres were almost guaranteed to last you the race, but the problem with it was that it didn't have the same level of speed as a hard compound tyre would. Marc Marquez went to the grid on the extra hard rear tyre, but the team changed his mind at the last minute and put the hard tyre on instead. Remember that, it becomes important later. The Yamahas, Rossi and Lorenzo, both had the extra hard tyre on. So the race sets off. Marquez is the fastest man on the track by miles. He sets off a 4-second lead within the first 10 laps of the race, and there's a big pack behind him of Valentino Rossi, Andrea Dovizioso, Andrea Iannone, Jorge Lorenzo and Cal Crutchlow in a fight for second. Rossi, who by the way was starting from 8th on the grid, had picked his way through this second pack and was now leading the chase against Marquez, because by the time we got to lap 11 or 12, the gap that Marquez had generated over the first 10 laps was starting to come down. Maybe only a tenth of a time to begin with, but then it became 2 tenths. 2 tenths became 3 tenths. At one point it became half a second a lap, mostly because the most technical part of the Argentina track, which was in a terrible condition by the way, so much dust everywhere because there's barely any motorsport in Argentina in the first place, but fact remains, by the time it was like we got to the last 10 laps, Marquez was losing a boatload of time in sector 1, which is the most technical and slow, complicated part of the track, where it's more based on mechanical grip, which just wasn't there with that rear tyre. So Marquez was basically riding absolutely at the limit, trying to save any time he could, as Valentino Rossi was putting in lap after lap after lap, trying to gun him down, and we had an incredible chase, an incredible tense race as a result of it. So, picture the scene. There's 2 laps to go. Rossi is now right on the back of Marc Marquez's rear tyre. They go down the back straight towards the hairpin. Rossi puts the move on. The move is done. He runs a little bit wide. Marquez tries to come back at him through the second left-hander afterwards. 2 guys on the same piece of tarmac. Rear tyre meets front tyre. Down goes Marquez. Marquez unable to finish. Rossi takes an ultimately quite straightforward victory from Andrea Dovizioso second, and Cal Crutchlow passing Iannone at the final corner to steal the podium, and just his 3rd race for Honda. Crutchlow on the podium for the LCR team. A really good day for the LCR team as well, because Jack Miller was also the top open class runner in 12th place. So a really good day at the office for the CWM LCR team. But the big controversy, whose fault was it that Marquez went down at the end? And I've looked at it a handful of times now, and I think it's a racing incident. 2 guys going for the same tarmac, and it's like it's a Jerez 2005 moment again. And for those guys that don't know, Jerez 2005 was a moment where Valentino Rossi deliberately goes in too hot to the final hairpin at Jerez, bumps Sete Gibernau off the road. Rossi wins the race. Gibernau runs on the gravel, finishes in 3rd. And that was the moment where those two hated each other, because Rossi essentially cheated to win, because we all know what he did. We all know he did it on purpose. And simply put, it's been the mantra that many riders had to learn over the years. You don't bully Valentino Rossi on track, even when he's being a bit of a dick, unfortunately. And I don't blame anyone in particular for that Argentina crash. Marquez probably shouldn't have come back so hard at him, but that's what Marc Marquez does. And let's be real here, we like it when riders go all out, and that's what made this race so great. We had the two best riders of the last 20 years, in my opinion, at their absolute limits, going head-to-head. That's what makes these things exciting. And Marc Marquez, it's not wired in his mainframe to go for second. It just isn't, not when he's that good. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember he's a 22-year-old who's only had 39 top-flight races, period. And we forget that he's, 14 years Rossi's junior, so to speak. And, we forget as well that Rossi is still this amazing a rider at the age of 36. And for me, this was his best performance since he's come back to Yamaha. It was magnificent, well-structured, hard on the pace, got it right, timed it perfectly, shut the door when he needed to, and it was a brilliant, brilliant race. And another all-time classic, one you've got to go out of your way to see, because the story of the race makes it better than just any old individual scrap. It was drama-filled, it was tense, it was filled with tension all the way through, and it had an incredibly dramatic ending. And if you're a Rossi fan, you probably already masturbated to it at least half a dozen times, like my brother has. Hey! But, yeah, if you go out of your way to see the MotoGP race, it's an absolute classic. Again, props to Crutchlow coming in third as well. Brilliant performance from him. Moving on to Moto2 real quick. Johan Zarco, who, let's be honest, he was probably owed this one from Qatar, given the gearbox issue that he had there. He was stuck in 5th gear, which is why he was slipped to 8th place in the end. But Zarco got his very first Moto2 win on that Calyx bike, probably a little bit overdue, and a long time coming. But Zarco just controlled the race, really, and he was always in the leading pack. He broke out a little bit of an advantage over a second group, which was Sam Lowes, Alex Rins, and Xavier Simeon. And once Sam Lowes was able to stabilise himself in second in that pack, Zarco was gone. He had about a 1.9 to 2 second lead, and Lowes just didn't have the pace to chase him down. It looked like Zarco just had the measure of him on the day, really. And Sam Lowes did something interesting as well. He had Alex Lowes behind him because Simeon had fallen off his bike with 7 laps to go. So Simeon's been competitive in all 3 races so far this season, but has failed to finish in 2 of them. Whoops. But Sam Lowes actually let Alex Rins pass him with 3 laps to go. And Lowes said after the race he just wanted the podium. He wanted to play it safe, didn't want to risk getting into a fight with Rins and potentially ruining his race. In hindsight, after what happened 2 hours later in the MotoGP race, maybe Lowes was smarter than we thought. But Lowes took a safe 3rd place. Alex Rins in 2nd in the end. Sam Lowes in 3rd. Tito Rabat got bumped off on the first lap. The reigning champion had to fight and claw his way back to finish in 12th in the end. So, if you look at the pattern of Alex Rins, first race, finished in 4th. Second race, finished in 3rd. Finished 2nd in Argentina. Maybe he'll win at home in Jerez. Just a thought. Johan Zarco now leads the championship by 4 points in the end. And the funny thing was as well, after he celebrated his victory, he did a backflip off his bike, off the barricade, in full racing gear and helmet. I was very impressed by that. And in Moto3, Danny Kent absolutely dominated the field yet again. I think it's the biggest dry margin of victory ever in a Moto3 race. A 10.3 second win over his teammate Efren Vazquez in 2nd. And who was 3rd again? I'm trying to remember here. It'll come to me. Yeah, thanks, Rye. Isaac Vinales, who's shouting for me in the background there. Cheers, Rye. So yeah, Isaac Vinales there in 3rd. And again, just a dominant performance. 10.3 second margin of victory for Danny Kent. Just a brilliant performance. He's really got his shit hooked up on that Honda Leopard racing bike. And props to him. He's doing a magnificent job at the moment. again, the funny thing was about that was that there was just an enormous scrap from second all the way down to 15th. Just 2.3 seconds covered second place Vasquez all the way down to 15th place John McPhee. So just an absolutely crazy polarizing grid. Once again, another Moto3 scrap for the ages. Miguel Oliveira finally got his first points as well in 4th as the highest scoring KTM runner. So again, Moto3 kind of crazy, but not at the front. Danny Kent absolutely crushing it. And also, if you haven't seen it yet, there's actually another really funny incident worth watching. It was during the Moto3 warm-up, after the warm-up session had finished. Romano Fenati and Nicky Io had got into a bit of a scrap after the session had finished. There was a lot of angry words being exchanged. They both lined up for a practice start. And afterwards, Romano Fenati kicked Nicky Io's bike. And then, when they were lining up for a practice start, after more arguing, he switched his engine off. Romano Fenati, world leader in handbags, everybody. That's just sheer dickheaded petulance from Romano Fenati, which is hilarious, yet also really stupid. Fenati had to start from the back of the grid. He had to apologise afterwards, and he had 3 penalty points put on his licence, which is actually quite nasty for Fenati, and very lucky in the sense that Fenati already had a penalty point on his licence from last year's Argentina Grand Prix, where he bumped off Jack Miller at the final corner. So if it wasn't for that point being cancelled out, he'd have to race to Jerez with from the back of the grid, because 4 penalty points in your licence in 1 calendar year equals you've got to start from the back of the grid during a race. So Fenati's got to be careful. He's 1 penalty point away from having a disqualification. So yeah, he's got to be careful on that one. But yeah, find it on YouTube if you haven't already. It is actually pretty funny, as much as Fenati's being a complete dick. But that's just one of those things, I suppose. That's motor racing for you. Hooray! But I've been Harrison101. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought of the MotoGP weekend in Argentina. There's so much to talk about as well. Like, why did Repsol Honda put the hard tyre on Marquez's bike? And, you know, why isn't Repsol Honda being put under the bus more for having a double DNF and essentially, you know, almost ruining Marquez's race by putting the wrong rear tyre on the back of his bike? Whoops. But that's worth talking about, and all that in the comments below. So let me know what you guys thought. I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.